that local police were addressing an issue at the 3 o'clock of the outer perimeter. At approximately 18:10 local time, via phone call, the Secret Service security room calls the counter sniper response agent reporting an individual on the roof of the AGR building. That vital piece of information was not relayed over the Secret Service radio network. At approximately 18:10 and 54 seconds, verified through body camera footage of local law enforcement, officers confront the assailant on the roof of the AGR building. At 18:11:05, via phone call, a site agent calls the assistant site agent to find out what exactly is going on at the 3 o'clock, and during that call, shots ring out. At 18:11:32, verified through body camera footage, the first series of shots are fired by the assailant. At 18:11:36, again verified through body camera footage, a second series of shots are fired by the assailant. At 18:11:47, through body camera footage, Secret Service counter snipers neutralized the threat. With respect to diligence, line of sight issues were acknowledged, but not properly mitigated. Issues were encountered the day of the visit with respect to line of sight concerns, but they were not escalated to supervisors. While some members of the advance team were very diligent, there was complacency on the part of others that led to a breach of security protocols. With respect to accountability, the Mission Assurance Review has identified deficiencies in the advanced planning and its implementation by Secret Service personnel. These employees will be held accountable, and this agency has among the most robust table of penalties in the entirety of the federal government. And these penalties will be administered according to our disciplinary process. But due to federal regulations, I cannot get into personnel matters as they are proceeding. With respect to a paradigm shift, we're at a pivotal moment in the history of the Secret Service and at a pivotal moment in the history of our country. And I've directed that the Secret Service embark on a significant paradigm shift that will redefine how we conduct protective operations. What occurred on Sunday demonstrates that the threat environment in which the Secret Service operates is tremendous and under constant threat. And we've been in this heightened and increasingly dynamic threat environment since July 13th. This reality has necessitated that we significantly increase our protective footprint, and we've already begun to do so following the events of July 13th. This increased operational tempo requires additional resources to not only account for costs being incurred today, but ensure that we have the tools, the technology, and personnel needed to meet these new requirements and execute our mission going forward. The paradigm shift will be a driving force to move the Secret Service from a state of reaction to a state of readiness. And the vision is for the Secret Service to be more agile, with the ability to escalate protection to the highest levels for numerous protectees for undetermined periods of time. But in order to do this, we need additional personnel, technical assets, and equipment for the sustainment of immediate and future needs. Our personnel have been in a state of hypervigilance following July 13th. We are certainly working our people hard, and I've used this term publicly, redlining. This cannot be about working our people harder. So with respect to changes, the workforce, the American public, they can expect changes in our processes for advances. There will be an increased use of technology, not only to assist in communications, but also situational awareness when we're doing our protective mission. There will be organizational changes. For example, I've already directed the creation of an applied research and development section to field new technologies, leverage the research of other government agencies, and calibrate our technical security assets to stay ahead of threat vectors and technical collection impacting Secret Service equities. This will be an iterative process, meaning it will be constantly evaluated, validated, updated, and evolving. We cannot be stagnant. And we must be weaned off the reliance of partners within DHS to assist us during high operational times. The Secret Service should be self-reliant outside of national special security events. However, we recognize that we will always need assistance from our partners within the Department of Homeland Security and our partners at the Department of Defense. And I want to take this moment now also to thank our workforce. I want to conclude by thanking the men and women of the Secret Service who are working tirelessly. This summer, we experienced an unprecedented operational tempo for our agency. Within a 45-day period, the Secret Service successfully implemented our operational security planning at 3 national special security events: the NATO Summit, the Republican National Convention, and the Democratic National Convention. We successfully protected both the presidential debate in Philadelphia and multiple protectee visits commemorating the anniversary of the September 11th attacks. All of this took place while protecting major party candidates on the campaign trail. This high operational tempo continues as the Secret Service prepares for the United Nations General Assembly next week, where we expect to protect more than 140 visiting world leaders and heads of state. I am proud of all that we've accomplished in a very difficult and tumultuous time for the agency. And I recognize and thank the men and women of the Secret Service and their families for continuing to make great sacrifices in support of our enduring mission. And with that, I will take questions.
Director, given all of the attention and scrutiny related to these events, Sir, given all the attention and scrutiny related to these events, do you believe your highest level protectees will now need to campaign differently in how they organize their events and in how they live their daily lives, things like trips to golf courses or recreational time? Will they have to live differently in order to be safe?
Well, ultimately, Kelly, it's the responsibility of the Secret Service to make sure that we provide a secure environment for our protectees. We want them to make sure that they can live their lives with some type of normalcy, but they must do so with us providing the highest levels of protection, which we have been doing since July 13th. And so it's ultimately our responsibility to make sure that wherever our protectees go, we are creating a safe environment. And that comes back to us being able to use our methodologies, to use our redundancies, our systems that we have in place to create those secure environments.
Do they need to campaign differently, sir?
I,
Those are organized or set up, outdoor events, that kind of thing?
So since July 13th, we have been securing successfully outdoor events. And what you're seeing is an increased use of assets, increased use of ballistic glass. So we certainly make sure that when they are out there at an outdoor venue, that we are using our protective methodologies to create that safe environment.
Hello, Director. Thank you for taking the time. Could you just kind of go into a bit more detail about the conversations you had with Trump campaign staff about the selection of the Butler site? The report says that Secret Service agents saw it as a challenge, and the staff wanted to have the rally there. Did the staff go against your recommendation? Can you speak to exactly what was said and what the outcome was?
So, listen, the staff chooses a site, and ultimately it's on the Secret Service to secure it. So when the site was selected, the advance team went about identifying areas of concern. The AGR building was one of those hazards that was identified. But let me just be clear, Maria, ultimately it is the Secret Service's responsibility to secure a site. We certainly have conversations, and it doesn't matter whether it's a campaign staff or a White House staff. We have conversations, and we have very good working relationships with those staffs. But ultimately, it is the Secret Service's responsibility to secure a site.
Your comments? Director, thank you. Based on your review and analysis, what is the reason, what's the best explanation for why there was not law enforcement personnel covering the roof, physically on the roof itself, or making sure someone could not get on top of the roof? And the follow-up question would be, how disappointed are you in what you described as deficiencies in diligence?
Sure. So ultimately, Pierre, we have to be very direct and clear when we're talking to our state and local counterparts. With respect to Butler, I think what the Mission Assurance Review has identified is that there was that lack of clarity. And I can tell you since July 13th, when I've been out on the road and I've watched field offices and I gave guidance upon becoming the acting director to the field, we have to be very clear when we're talking to our state and local partners. We value those relationships with them. We need them to be assisting us and be shoulder to shoulder with us. And it appears that there was that lack of clarity with respect to Butler. And go again with your follow-up here.
On that, so there was a lack of clarity that roof should be secure, period, full stop.
There was discussion about how the roof was going to be secured, and I think what it came back to is we should have challenged how that mechanism was being implemented. Meaning, we should have been more direct. We cannot be overly deferential to state and local law enforcement. Ultimately it's our responsibility, and so we just have to be very clear when we're asking them for support. They want to help us, and what we found is that in this. They in the mission assurance interviews, it became apparent that in comparison to prior visits to that area, there was one prior visit in 2020, that there was a lack of assertion with respect to what exactly state and locals would have to require or would be required to support that advance.
Clarity on the second question, simply, how disappointed are you when you see that, as the report states that some personnel did not follow Secret Service protocols?
Well, I'm not going to get into employee disciplinary matters, but what I can tell you is the men and women of the Secret Service are dedicated professionals. And so while July 13th is a failure, we're not proud of it, but we certainly have been rising to this moment. The men and women in the field are rising to this moment. They are working tirelessly to make sure that the people we protect are safe. And so I will never be disappointed in our folks. I am proud of this agency. I am proud of our people.
Hi, thanks so much for doing this. On the question of the AGR buildings, is there a process that's standard for the day of the event that somebody from the Secret Service looks around and makes sure all of the assets are where they are? And since the roof of the AGR building was such a glaring omission, why didn't anybody raise that issue at the time? Or secondly, in the security room, look and say, I don't see any local police in here. How are we going to hear them?
Right, and I think that was a failure to challenge our assumptions. The assumption that local police were going to have more of a presence in that AGR building. Getting back to your question, there is that diligence that has to be done by the site agents to make sure that, hey, all of the assets are in place. And so there was an assumption that they had it covered, but there clearly was not that follow-up to make sure.
But is there a process that you look around and like a punch list and check it off? And
it is part of the principles of our advance and our protective methodologies.
okay, and secondly, just to follow up on the campaign question, you said it's ultimately the Secret Service's responsibility. So when there's a disagreement between the campaign and the Secret Service on a security issue, who has the last word?
So it's not about disagreement, it's about a negotiation. They certainly don't want any harm to come to their principal, and so they respect us. And so usually what it boils down to is escalating it up to a supervisor and a senior staff level. What I can tell you is that if there were discrepancies, and there were, regarding how the site was supposed to have been secured, how supervisors were briefed, and supervisors reported in their mission assurance interviews that they envisioned harder assets to be able to secure that line of sight, to be able to mitigate anything that might have been looking in or would have created an openness on the site at the Butler Farm Show. And so on the morning of, if there were those deficiencies, they were never escalated up to the supervisors to be able to resolve.
David Spahn, Fox News. Thank you, sir. I have two questions. They're related. The first is looking forward. The House just voted within the last couple of hours unanimously from those that were present in the chamber to give presidential candidates the exact same Secret Service protection as sitting presidents. My first question is, can you handle that?
We've been doing that since July 13th, David.
So what is the purpose of the bill?
I don't know. You'd have to ask members of Congress that. What I can tell you is that when I say the highest levels of Secret Service protection, the former president is getting tactical assets. He's getting everything that the former president, that the current president has with respect to Secret Service assets.
And that was my second question. Can you explain that former President Trump is getting the same protection as President Biden and Vice President Harris? Because a lot of members of Congress on Capitol Hill are skeptical about that. There's a lot of talk saying clearly he didn't have the same protection, because if he did, the golf course would have been secure in West Palm Beach. Can you tell people what's going on with that?
So with respect to West Palm Beach, what I can tell you without getting into our TTPs, our techniques, our tactics, our procedures, what I can tell you is that on that day, there were counter-sniper elements that were present with the former president on the golf course in proximity. There was an entire counter-assault team that was there in proximity. There was also a jump team in proximity. The advance agent who was part of the first element, whose goal was to sweep ahead, did his job. That young man is a very young agent early in his career. His vigilance, his reaction is exactly how we trained and exactly what we want our personnel to do. He identified a threat, an individual with a long gun, and he made swift decisions and took a swift action to be able to mitigate that. No shot was fired at the former president. The former president was not exposed to where he was on the golf course. And what I've said, and I said this Monday, that the procedures work, the redundancies work, so that high level of protection is working.
Nicole Skanga, CBS.
Acting Director, thank you very much for doing this. Two questions, just one on West Palm Beach. The busy public road that is adjacent to that sixth hole where the suspect was hiding is a well-known blind spot on that specific golf course. Why did no one within the U.S. Secret Service sweep behind that fence line for threats?
They were sweeping ahead, Nicole. So what I just explained is that that lead element was going ahead sweeping.
But was there anyone behind the fence where the road was sweeping there to see if anyone was in the bushes?
Having been there and seen the vantage point, whether they were on the public side or the private side, the bottom line is the individual was detected.
On Butler, you testified before Congress that all assets requested for the Butler rally by Trump's detail were approved. But there are Secret Service assets that may have prevented the tragedy on July 13th, most notably a counter-assault advance team that would have surveyed the site ahead of time or enhanced counter-drone protection that might have prevented the tragedy. Were those specific assets requested by Trump's detail? If they were they denied? And if they weren't, why weren't they requested?
So the counter-assault team had an element that was there that had embedded with local law enforcement, so we had tactical elements in place. The counter-assault team leader that day had been in direct contact in the days leading up to July 13th with those tactical elements.
But just to be clear, did the Trump detail ask for any additional resources that were denied by the Secret Service?
So based on the information I have right now, the asset request, all of those assets that were asked for were approved. And so what we're looking at now is, were there any additional ones that came in through other channels? But what I can tell you, based on the information I have now, the assets were approved.
We'll go to Holmes or CNN.
Two questions. When we're talking about Florida and the idea that this was the Secret Service working as it should, does this mean that no security will change for Trump when he goes golfing again?
Well, I think what we try to do, Holmes, after every incident, we look at it. What could we have done better? We look at everything. And it doesn't matter whether there's a critical incident that occurs. So we are looking and we're reevaluating to look at, do we need? I've had conversations with Sheriff Bradshaw in Palm Beach County. And so I will leave it to the local field office to carry on those conversations about making changes. That's where I'll leave that.
And then on Butler, if we can drill down on the specific timeline a little bit. At 6:08, we know that a local radio call went out that a man was on the roof. Now, my understanding is that the state police were in a separate area with locals, and their job was to communicate any local chatter to the Secret Service. Why was that 6:08 radio call not communicated to Secret Service, or was it by the state police?
So the information I have is that we had a member of the Pennsylvania State Police in our security room, and that's what spurs that phone call to the counter sniper response agent at 1810.
And so the state police never communicated a local radio call at 608 to the
What I'm
Secret
saying
Service?
is that the personnel that was in the security room passed that information, and that triggers the 1810 phone call.
Okay.
We'll go to Rebecca Beach with the Hill.
Hi, I know Congress has sounded a little resistant lately in terms of what it might do for funding for the Secret Service. Given the sort of paradigm shift that you've laid out today, I'm curious what you'll be looking for from Congress and sort of what you're seeking from lawmakers to carry that out.
We've been briefing, we've been providing information. Right now, I do think that, the Congress has questions. We're responding to those questions and providing them information. But at the end of the day, I think everybody wants a strong Secret Service, and that's what I'm working towards. That's what members are working towards. And so we'll continue to have those conversations.
We'll go to Claudia with Univision.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this. Republicans in Congress, they want the same level of security than the president for the candidates. How realistic is really that? Can you be more specific on that? I know you answered that question, but can a candidate have the same level of security of a sitting president? And also, what changes are we expecting in the security area after, where most of the incidents happened?
So how I approach that, Claudia, is this. The way the Secret Service is structured, the President of the United States has the highest level of protection of any world leader, period, the end. The number of assets that the Secret Service provides and the Department of Defense provides is at the highest levels. Those same highest levels with respect to the Secret Service are being provided to the former president's detail. And so when it comes to maintaining this, where we are at right now is we have finite resources. The way we are structured with some of our classified assets, with some of our personnel, and with some of the president, we've now expanded that to include the former president. And so while we can do this, it is certainly, we are burning through a lot of assets and resources. And that's the argument that we've been trying to show. This isn't some pie in the sky trying to say, hey, we want this now. We are not capitalizing on a crisis. We are showing the math. We have finite resources, and we are stretching those resources to their maximum right now, which is going to require us to replace these assets. It's going to require us to also adjust, to look at this and evaluate that if we have to do this again, or do it because of some other situation that we have no other control of, we have to be able to sustain that for an indefinite period of time. And so I am hopeful, and I am certainly engaged in these discussions, and I feel like at the end, we will get there because we have no other choice.
What changes are you going to make outside of the secure area? That zone where everything happens?
The outer perimeter. So
Yeah.
I think that's where we have to be very direct and clear with our state and local partners as to what we're asking of them.
Go to Joe Khalil with News Nation.
Thank you, Acting Director. I've got two questions. The first, it's our understanding it takes anywhere from 4 to 10 years for an agent to go through the training that rises them up to a presidential detail level. You've described a manpower issue. Given that, do you think that training timeframe might change so you can expedite getting more officers to a presidential detail should you need that?
So we're not going to drop standards, Joe. We have not dropped standards. You do need to develop those agents. And when agents start, you cannot put them on the highest level protection, protecting a protectee. When they graduate from our training facility, they go to a field. They do advances. They do criminal investigations. The importance of having that what we call phase one, that's where those agents that are doing federal investigations, that are interfacing with local law enforcement, those are skills that they learn, analytic skills, how to conduct a federal investigation, how to interact with a U.S. attorney, how to interact with a state or local agency. And all the while they're doing that, they're also popping in and out doing protection, whether they're doing it in New York City for a United Nations General Assembly, or they're doing in advance for a visiting head of state or a world leader that comes into their field office district. That's where they cultivate and sharpen those skills, and it will take them up until probably 4 years. Ideally, that sweet spot is between the 4th and 5th year, where we send them off to a permanent detail. That's where we are getting to as far as the career path. And so it's critically important that we make sure that we still develop people. It is being on the Presidential Protective Division or the Vice Presidential Detail. It is a very, very high pressure situation. It requires a lot of maturity. It requires decision-making, analytic skills, and the ability to problem solve. And it takes time to develop those skills, even though we've put you through training. The more seasoning you have in the field, the better off you're going to be as far as being a protection agent.
So then how do you address the manpower issue quickly?
So right now, we've had robust hiring. This year, by the time we close out the fiscal year, we're going to hire more than 400 special agents this year. Right now, looks like we're going to have a net gain in the hundreds, triple-digit net gains, something that we have not seen in a little while. I can tell you that applications right now are at an all-time high for applicants seeking employment with the United States Secret Service. So I do believe that we are going to meet this. We have no choice. We have the 2028 Summer Olympics ahead of us in Los Angeles. The Secret Service will be responsible for the security planning of that. That is going to require a tremendous amount of personnel, tremendous amount of resources, and a tremendous amount of collaboration with state and local and other federal partners. We are going to get there. We are getting there now. We have filled all of our training classes going into this next fiscal year. So we're getting there. We have turned the corner. We're showing those metrics to Congress, and I think that's the question that they've had, and we are going to show them that we can deliver on this.
And just second question is, former President Trump has said that he is going to the Alabama-Georgia football game this weekend. Are those kinds of events particularly concerning, given he could be around tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people?
So I'm not going to comment on protectee schedules. What I'll tell you is that each event is complex and each advance is different. And those advance teams, they know what they have to do to make a secure environment for our protectees.
Thank you for doing this. You said we were now moving into the accountability phase of this Butler investigation. You did not want to discuss names of who might be punished, so to speak, but can you give us more detail, at least maybe how many people would face punishment or repercussions for what happened in Butler, at what levels of the organization those people represent, and what level of punishment, again, they may face?
So again, I can't comment on this. This is a personnel matter that is still pending. What I will tell you is that I have not asked for anybody to retire. That was not, I know some of that was reported. That is false. And with respect to the disciplinary process, it will be handled in accordance with our table of penalties. That will be led by the Office of Integrity in coordination with our Office of Professional Responsibility.
And then one follow-up as well. All this talk about making things more robust, more agents in the field, this type of thing. This is not the first presidential election you guys have had to secure. So why weren't all those moves put in place prior to this year's election?
So the former president has had robust security around him since he left office, more robust than prior former presidents.
Thank you, Acting Director Rowe. Jackson Richmond, Epoch Times. Has security been adjusted or increased following the Florida attempted assassination attempt? After all, according to Congressman Matt Gaetz, a DHS official has warned that there are 5 assassination teams targeting former President Trump. The official warned that there isn't enough protection to deal with that level of threat. Are you aware of this assessment, and what is the Secret Service doing to respond?
So I will tell you, as I mentioned earlier, we, of course, are evaluating coming out of West Palm Beach, and we're having those conversations with state and locals. I'm not going to talk about unnamed sourcing or the report you mentioned. I'm not familiar with that.
And local law enforcement doesn't have the same training that Secret Service agents do. Will the Secret Service be training local law enforcement ahead of events as to prevent another Butler?
So right now we're actually having some very good discussions with the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center about developing a curriculum to assist our state and local partners. And you know what I'll say is some of the things that we've been talking about. Our state and local partners, and I know people have said they're not trained like the Secret Service. Men and women of law enforcement protect their communities every day. They understand how to handle a crisis situation. They understand how to respond to a violent felony in progress. They know what their jobs are. We certainly, when we ask them and enlist their assistance, you know, we're relying on them. So I think it's important that we always try to give back to them, whether it's through training or forensic support or investigative support. And so one of the things that we're contemplating now is partnering with the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center to develop not only a law enforcement guide, but also develop a training curriculum through FLETC with a cadre of Secret Service personnel to be able to train them in the principles of advance. And that will only help them when dignitaries come to their district, or perhaps if they're protecting a mayor or a locally elected official. So we're all about giving back to them. Next month, we're going to unveil a guide on how to come up with a multidisciplinary threat assessment team that's going to be led by our National Threat Assessment Center. So we are very, very in tune with what our state and local partners, how they support us, and we're constantly evaluating what we can do to not only bolster those relationships, but give back to them.
Thank you.
Sadie Gurman, Wall Street Journal.
Wow, you guys have covered a lot of ground with your questions. I guess I would just ask, guys, I don't know. You guys have really covered it. I'm sorry. I'm gonna give my question to someone else.
You only get one.
Anthony?
Rebecca with the Associated Press.
I'm going to go back to the line of sight issues and the roof issues. Can you just lay out very clearly who was responsible for security on those roofs? Was it the locals? What was the plan and how did it fail? And then also secondly, you keep talking about a paradigm shift, but what does that mean? Can you kind of detail what you mean by that?
So with respect to the AGR building, and that's where you're going for, right? When we construct a site, not only are we worried about who can get into a site, but also who can look into that site. So there should have been clear direction about what we needed done at the AGR building. That was discussed during the advance, but I think there was a lack of follow through based on the information I have now and what I'm seeing. There should have been better follow through in some aspects of that, about access control to that property, about access control to the collateral property of the AGR building. And so it was about not giving the state and locals clearer direction on what we needed done. With respect to the paradigm shift, this is about looking at the organization holistically. For example, the communications issue. Communications were problematic. And I think where I'm looking at is we need to have communications that are more closely aligned to the operations. And so coming out of July 13th, what I've seen and the direction I gave is we have to be very efficient with where we're putting our security rooms. Recently, I was on a visit where, again, similar to Butler, where there was a unified command post. Just as there was in Butler, there was one at this location, where not only did you have emergency services insofar as fire life safety, but you had emergency management officials. You had the highway patrol and the state police in that room. You had local law enforcement in that room. You had Secret Service agents in that room monitoring frequencies and listening to what was going on those state and local networks. In addition to that, the locals were flying a drone in proximity to the site. That drone feed was being beamed into that unified command post, and our agents had total domain awareness about what was going on. Also, they had traffic cams. They were able to pipe in those traffic cams into that unified command post. That is the model by which our field, they have taken this to heart, and those special agents in the field are now having those conversations, and they are directing exactly what we need, and they're posting our people exactly where we need to be, so that when our protectees are in a site, we have total awareness of what's going on around us, and we have total awareness of what's being communicated on those local networks.
And if I could just follow up with one question. Down in West Palm Beach, on the evening of the attempted assassination down there, the local chief, I believe it was Bradshaw, had said that when Trump was president, there would have been a lot more security around the perimeter, but basically now the Secret Service does the best that they can. But you've said that he has got the highest levels of security now. I mean, can you compare and contrast, like, is it the same now as he would have been getting while he was sitting president?
So what I'll say is the former president has the highest levels of Secret Service protection, and I think the sheriff actually went back and clarified his statement, so I would point you to that. I believe he did that on Monday.
Thank you, Director. Wanted to ask about Sunday's incident as well. Is it your view, I know you've talked about the procedures working as intended, is it your view that there wasn't any type of security lapse that allowed that armed individual to get within a few hundred yards of the former president?
Well, I can tell you is we're looking at it from an after-action report, looking at reviewing that. But what I think it goes to show is that that's why we have tripwires. That's why we have systems out there. That's why we have redundancies built into our protective model. And that's what was demonstrated on Sunday.
And in terms of the report, I mean, what specifically will be different on the ground now? For instance, are you mandating that command posts have both Secret Service and local law enforcement in them? Will law enforcement have to communicate on the same frequencies? Are there any sort of practical changes that you've made that are in effect, based on the report?
Yeah, so security room location, right, being where local law enforcement is, right? The broad use of technical security assets, ballistic glass, leveraging partnerships with the Department of Defense to be able to move materials, move personnel across the country in support of a nominee. So those are things that we've been doing post July 14th, and those are things that are going to probably be in existence in perpetuity moving forward.
I also had a question about Florida. Can you say whether there's any indication that this suspect might have surveilled golf courses any time before Sunday, or what led him to choose that day to be there for maybe 12 hours?
So it's an active investigation, so I would refer you to the FBI for that.
And can you say anything more about golf courses or sprawling open places? Anything that would be publicly visible that you could say, here is how we are beefing up protection when a protectee is on a golf course?
So again, what I've said, and I'll continue to do this, and I have to be very mindful of our techniques, our tactics, and our procedures. It is probably not good to continuously not only talk about Secret Service procedures, because we're telegraphing to adversaries. We're telegraphing to people who probably would intend to do harm to our protectees. But what I will tell you is that our model, our protective model, consists of multiple layers and redundancies. The outer, the middle, the inner, those are the layers. And then we have redundancies built into that. And so with respect to golf courses or any open venue, we apply those methodologies.
Ellen Gilmer with Bloomberg will be next.
Thanks, Acting Director. With regard to your conversations on Capitol Hill, can you talk about, for resources, do you need to have a specific dollar amount included in an upcoming CR to make things work, or would the anomaly language that the administration had previously requested, is that something you can live with?
I'm not going to get into specifics because we're having those conversations, and out of respect for the confidentiality of those discussions, I'm not going to disclose a number. What I'll tell you is that we've made several presentations. We're working at the staff level, and we're having those conversations, and they are ongoing.
And related to that, you mentioned earlier you want the Secret Service to wean itself from relying on other components of DHS in its protective mission. Is that contingent on getting those additional resources, either right now or at some point in the appropriations process?
Well, I don't want to rule out that we'll never have to enlist the assistance of others through requests for assistance, and we do those memorandums, and we did that back for several presidential campaign cycles. But I think the importance here is we have to be able to, at a moment's notice, surge people to where they need to go. And if we're going to be having to mitigate And that's what we do. We're in the risk mitigation business. We are not in the risk elimination business. And so we have to be able to have the personnel, the assets, and be able to spread those out for an indefinite period of time in the event that another situation, a geopolitical conflict, or some other tension requires us to do so.
Thank you. You've addressed the golf course incident in great detail, but I just want to ask, are you fully satisfied with the way the Secret Service managed the Florida incident on the golf course, or would you change anything? Can you answer the question that way?
I'd say based on the information I have right now, I say that situation was managed according to our training. You know, those as soon as our agent discovered the individual, took swift action and took steps to neutralize that threat. Immediately upon doing so, he communicated over the radio. There was a communication of shots fired, which immediately, not only did our personnel assigned to the close protection of the president, of the former president, hear the shots, they immediately went into action. The counter-assault team went into action. The counter-snipers went into action. Supervisors and shift personnel immediately evacuated the president, took the most expedient route to where he needed to shelter in place. He had ballistic protection around him. They sheltered in place until they could determine, was this just the first wave of an attack? Immediately, local law enforcement assets responded to the scene. Local tactical assets that were partnered with their counter-assault team were also present, immediately responded. And so that barrier, those layers of protection, those redundancies, the redundancy was the agent that first discovered, followed by another set of agents that also set up that middle perimeter around the shift that was evacuating. And so in the case of West Palm Beach, based on the information I have now, and again, we will review it, it appears that those agents, those supervisors, made swift decisions and made correct decisions.
Thank you. Hi, Acting Director. I want to drill down on this issue of resources. You sent a letter to Senator Murphy and to Senator Britt on September 5th, and it became public. And it said in the letter, you wrote, "We do not believe that the security failures of July 13th, 2024 was the result of a lack of resources." I'm hearing you talk over and over again, and it says here at the bottom of this press release you guys have today, the agency must increase its protective footprint, including personnel, technical assets, and equipment. How do you square those two things? How do you ask Congress for more money when you yourself have determined that what happened on July 13th was not a lack of resources?
So how I square that is as follows. Following July 13th, we immediately took steps to elevate the vice president, the former president, to the highest levels of Secret Service protection. We also took steps to elevate the protection of Senator Vance and eventually Governor Walz to high levels of Secret Service protection. And what I was talking about earlier is the way we are structured, and I go back to this, the President of the United States is the most highly protected individual on the face of the world. That is how the Secret Service is built. That is what we are primarily focused on. And then once you have those assets and resources, they are also committed to the vice president. So how I square this is as follows. Following July 13th, when now we are because of this hyper-dynamic threat and the operational environment which we find ourselves in, we only have so much of those assets to go around. And so while we are providing them to the former president, we are providing them to the president, to the vice president, to other protectees. And so at this point, what I'm telling Congress is we can do this and we will do this, but there has to be a replacement. There has to be life cycle replacement on this. There has to be, if we're going to be called upon to do this again or do this now, because the threat is not waning. The threat is not going to evaporate anytime soon. And so we have to be prepared for this. And that is the argument that we have been making, and we have certainly made some inroads, and we're having these productive conversations with the Hill.
Can I just ask you also, will the Secret Service have the resources to protect the Capitol
on January 6th. I know that's now been designated. The agency will be leading the protective services detail for that day. You're describing protecting all these different people right now. How will January 6th play out?
So the January 6th proceedings were designated a national special security event. We are the lead security planner for that. But again, we have great partnerships with all the law enforcement agencies in Washington, D.C., and most notably the U.S. Capitol Police, which are our partners when we do the State of the Union or when we do any event at the Capitol that rises to a national special security event, like the State of the Union or state funeral.
So you feel confident you will have the personnel, technical assets, and equipment you need for that day?
We will have what we need.
Director, last question is going to go to the floor. Blue Park.
Do you think that by Congress legislating the protective detail regulations, do you think that is helpful in terms of being able to staff up or staff down the agency when you need?
So I have not done an analysis of the legislation. I assume it's pretty direct. But look, as I stated, I'm sure Congress wants to make sure that the Secret Service is strong. I don't know the intentions behind this piece of legislation, but what I'll just point back to, coming out of Butler, coming out of July 13th, we've been providing the highest levels of Secret Service protection to the former president.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.